Today I'm going to tell you an interesting story about the life of St. Mark. St. Mark is commonly known for his writing of the Gospel of St. Mark. He was born in around 5 AD in Cyrene, a small town in modern-day Libya. His birth name was John Mark, and was known to have come from a Jewish family who later moved to Jerusalem for a better life. According to some Bible scholars, the house where St. Mark's family lived was the central hub of the early Christians. It was also speculated that the house was the place where the Last Supper took place and the Pentecost, an event that happened 50 days after Jesus' resurrection when the Holy Spirit descended upon the apostles to empower them for their ministry. This place is now called the Cenacle, which is currently owned by the Muslim community after the city was captured during 6th century Islamic conquests. St. Mark was often misunderstood as one of Jesus' 12 disciples, but he actually wasn't. His family had close ties with the early Christians, who usually gathered in their house for prayer and worship. So, he grew up in the company of some of the most prominent Christian figures such as St. Peter, St. Paul, and St. Barnabas. For St. Mark, Peter was like a spiritual father to him. Later, he became St. Peter's interpreter and wrote down his teachings, memories, including his personal diaries. From his close relationship with St. Peter came one of the greatest contributions to Christianity, which was the Gospel of Mark. According to some Bible scholars, St. Mark wrote his Gospel in a fast-paced, action-filled style that captures the energy and movement of Jesus' life. It was also estimated that he wrote the Gospel when he was about 50 to 60 years old. Though he wasn't one of Jesus' disciples, his knowledge about Jesus' life and ministry came from St. Peter's first-hand experiences. Later, St. Mark traveled to Alexandria in Egypt by himself. There he built a church which remains one of the oldest Christian churches in the world. In Alexandria, he preached with great power, where he converted many people to Christianity despite the growing conflicts against the pagan religion. He also became the first bishop of Alexandria, where he led the Christian community. Around 68 AD, during the pagan festival of Serapis, St. Mark was seized by an angry mob. When they knew that he was the bishop, they tied a rope around his neck and dragged him through the streets until he died a brutal martyr's death. After his death, his followers buried his body where a cathedral was built in his name in Alexandria. In 828 AD, some Venetian merchants stole some of his relics and brought them to Venice, where he was highly venerated as the town patron saint. According to some witnesses, merchants placed the relics of St. Mark beneath layers of pork to avoid Muslim inspection, successfully smuggling them to Venice. Later, the Grand Basilica of St. Mark was built in Venice to honor his sacred name. This is also the reason why the official coat of arms of Venice is a winged lion. This actually represents their strong devotion to the Gospel St. Mark, which is symbolized as a winged lion. Today, St. Mark is venerated as the patron saint of notaries Venice and in Egypt, and his feast day is celebrated every 25th April. If you like stories like this, follow, like, and subscribe.